Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
The E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have Dead Simple by Bryce V. Giroux. So, we're going to try something a little bit different this episode.
For reasons.
See, last episode, final thoughts and outro discussion. So we're gonna try. We're gonna do something simple. We're going to, if you'd like to check out this story, Dead Simple. Dead Simple. Holy shit! I did. Yes, I totally meant to do that.
Yeah, I could tell. That's why you set it up for me.
Exactly. Wink with both eyes.
Yeah.
Dead Simple. It's by Bryce V. Giroux. You can check it out at creepypasta.wiki. And we're going to start this episode by giving our initial recommendations, and then we're going to dive into the spoilers of the story itself, and our grammar inquisition and our actual thoughts, and then go into our full final thoughts of why we recommended it or why we didn't recommend it, kind of thing. So we're trying out a slightly modified version of the show. So,
and whether or not each other's notes influenced our thoughts after the fact.
Yeah,
there's been a couple of times where I've changed my tune.
Yeah, and it happens because we kind of live in a vacuum before we start the show, and then as we start talking and start pointing out things that we either suddenly agree with or don't agree with, oh yeah, you pointed that thing out that I didn't notice. Okay, that kind of makes the story suck. Or okay, you pointed out something in the story that actually is kind of cool. So actually, I'm gonna revoke my dislike for the story a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I suppose I'll start off with my recommendation. I do actually recommend the story. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil.
I do not recommend the story.
Okay, and Gamer.
I mean, it was okay. I didn't hate it. I'll give it a soft recommendation.
Okay, so we kind of got the full spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and if you're like-minded individuals to any of our past thoughts and and kind of personalities, and you're a long time listener of the show, use that recommendation as you will if you want to check out the story first, or just wait for us to go do our spoilers.
Mm-hmm. So if you're generally on Team Mikey, you're probably not going to like this story, for example.
Mm-hmm. God, does that mean we have to start a Redbubble merch of Team Mikey, Team Cultist, and Team Gamer? Yeah. Oh my gosh. I guess, yeah. And the be color coded. Wait, what? So what's Mikey's color? Because I'm green,
black.
You're yellow, and he's just Is he just static or
Yeah.
black? Black with a star field.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not Mikey, so he can say words.
Black with a green star field.
Oh. So polka dots. Black with green polka dots.
It's a star field. Shut up.
Yeah, I know. All right. So yeah, if use those recommendations as you will, if you want to. But we are going to dive into the rundown and here be spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
So Nair, because I don't believe we get a name for this, the narrator of the story.
Correct.
Is on the run when his car breaks down in a small town off the Trans-Canada Highway in Northern Ontario. The town is so small, it's not even on any maps. He tries the only gas station in town to refuel, but there's no gas coming out. Nair goes into the store and meets Joseph, an old francophone whose family, along with this town, was probably founded in the time of the early French settlers. The gas station is pretty sparse, and Joseph unhelpfully tries to help Nair with directions to another gas station, since they haven't had gas in that gas station for since the 80s. When Nair gets back to his car, he encounters two little children that kind of scurry off. And when he tries to start his car, it won't even start. Nair gets angry from this. So he goes back into the store and asks Joseph to borrow a phone for a tow. but Joseph is kind of weird about it and eventually calls his grandson, who has a tow truck. He then points Nair out back to the picnic tables, where Nair can wait for the grandson to arrive with the tow truck and such, and even offers a glass of tap water because they don't have bottled water up in this little dirt mound of a town. As Nair waits out back, taking in the fresh air and the forest scenery that he'd just love to run through free, he notices those two children again. They come up to him and ask him if he's a loop guru, like their grandfather had said Nair was, which catches Nair off guard, not because they've just accused him of being this thing, but because he is in fact a loop guru. And it's the first time in a long time anyone has used that term for him. That's when Joseph shows up, scares off the children, and then gives Nair the glass of water and also a warning that this town doesn't want loop gurus back in here. Apparently, they've had encounters with them in the past. Then Nair is left to wait and daydream of the woods again before he hears the tow truck in the front of the store and some French cursing. He arrives around the gas station to see the tow truck smack into his own car, like the front bumper area, and like there's a crunching sound that's painful to listen to.
He was guiding it back, wasn't he?
No, it was Joseph.
Oh, I thought he was.
No, Alan, Joseph's grandson, was in the tow truck, backing it up, and Joseph was trying to help him guide it, and then like there was like a pained expression on Joseph's like face when there's a sickening crunch as the tow truck backed up too far. So at this, like as they're kind of scrambling, oh crap, like the bumpers bent in and broken, the radiator's leaking, and like there's a headlight that's cracked. Nair gets angry that this is going to cost him even more, and then he turns. Though he doesn't recall what exactly happened, just that when he turns, he only recalls his beastly actions when he turns back into a human. It's what happened before, it's why he's on the run, and what's happened now. And when he turns back into a human, all he can taste is blood on his mouth and what human cannibals must call long pig. Fin. So
that's something like long cat, right?
No, it's actually no.
Okay, cool.
Have you never heard of that term, gamer?
I have.
Okay. I was like, I must have mentioned it beforehand.
Yes.
It must have come up in a conversation I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that I'm a cannibal. I'm just
no.
Anyway, moving right along to everyone tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions. At this point, I got a couple. So I'm going to start with this one here. Never was there a more iconic name for a town ever created, in brackets, except perhaps for some of those dismal little towns along the southern coast of Australia, like Mount Hope or Coffin Bay. Towns obviously settled by convicts and castaways, end bracket. Next paragraph. I was a castaway in my own right, running from my terrible past, period. Okay, so I want to bring this one up because I feel like the bracket was unnecessary, or the brackets were unnecessary for this, because it's going into a related topic in the next paragraph. Like, so it's associated with what's happening in the last paragraph. Whereas I usually, at least from my experience of reading and stuff, I usually see a bracketed piece, like a bracketed sentence or note, as a form of like an aside or a commentary outside of what's going on in the story itself, like sort of giving some extra details that aren't necessarily important to the story. But in this case, it felt like the story did kind of use that information as like a segue to the next paragraph.
Yeah. Also, it's a really long bracket. The bracket is longer than the non-bracket.
Yeah, there's also it also kind of like causes that entire like that quote I just mentioned basically to be a one run-on sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's no periods there's no break except for the brackets. So, but yeah, you could probably like put like a comma, like either a comma or like a period, like around where like it says the town's like the more iconic, like iconic name for a town ever created, comma period, except perhaps for some of those dismal little towns. But yeah, so that's my first little thing here. Next one. Pleasant Creek was a hunting town nestled somewhere in heart of northern Ontario. And this one's just a simple, it's missing of the. So somewhere in the heart of northern Ontario. My next one. Only one gas pump with globe atop, cracked and faded, provided service to the locals. I feel like it should have a the as well here. So only one gas pump with the globe atop, cracked and faded.
Or
does that make sense?
Atop, cracked and faded. Yeah.
Because at first I was like, with globe atop, I was almost wondering if globe was like a logo or something like that, but like no, it's probably that globe that you kind of see on like old fashioned gas stations where like it shows like where the gas is going through. But yeah, so bottom line, I think it needs to have the there or an a there.
Yes.
And then on to the next one here. It looked as though it had transported through time from the 50s. I feel like the it shouldn't actually be there. I think it should be. It looked as though I had transported through time from the. Oh no, from the 50s. Damn it. Never mind.
Cool.
Maybe a comma.
Maybe I don't know. It felt like it was like it felt as though I had transported to the 50s because of like the just because it didn't sit like that. It didn't sit well with me.
Just because it's a front it, so you're like, there has to be something else I can do with this.
Yeah, you know what? That's honestly this is the case of me actually like discovering like a shitty it front it in the story, because it's like like using the sentence out of context. I thought that the it I wasn't sure what the subject was that had been transported through time.
Gotcha.
Metaphorically, anyway.
I do think you're right though. It should be like I had been transported through time. Because he's saying that everything looks like it's from there. Yeah,
so it's like, well, yeah, has he suddenly just... And that's something that you often see, or you often hear in stories, or like when somebody's bringing up that they went through like through this like really old small town. Like it felt like you were transported to a different time period because like time is stopped with the architecture and the culture in those towns.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so yay, I'm still on top of that one. Maybe.
Sure.
Moving on to the next thing. I gingerly placed the seasoning salt back in its place, careful to try to line it up in the void of dust where it once sat. So I think it needs to have a comma between place and careful. So it's like, I gingerly placed the seasoning salt back in its place, comma, careful to try to line it up in the void of dust, blah, 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 blah. Just because like when I first read it, I kept wanting to say, put the salt back in its place carefully.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I'd read the rest of it as like to try and line it. Oh, okay, no, that's not how it's supposed to be yet.
Yep.
Okay, so on to the next one here. I walked back to my car, dragging my heels into the dry earth, watching the wisps of dust kick up from my feet and tiny pebbles scattered their way, tracing little roads in the dirt before of me. Before of me? I think you need to just get rid of that of. So it's just like tracing little roads in the dirt before me. Because like you see that, like I can visualize that. It's just like the rocks rolling in the dirt and like forming little like rivet, like little like trenches and stuff, right? So, but yeah, I don't know what that before of me was. Also, maybe dragging my heels in the dirt or in the dry earth, not into the dry earth.
Also, wouldn't he be making roads behind him, not before him?
No, because he's kicking his. So he's watching the wisps of dust kick up from my feet, and tiny pebbles scattered their way, tracing little road. So as he's like walking, kicking, and like dragging his feet and kicking like pebbles, they're ahead of. They're going slightly faster than he is, ahead of him, and creating those little grooves and whatnot. So
yeah, because like the pebble like flies out a little bit, hits the dirt, and is like sliding along the dirt, making a short little path behind it.
Yeah,
I see. Yes.
And then my last one is he hadn't disappeared far as I heard him pick up a telephone receiver and dial. I feel like there should be a comma between far and as. So he hadn't disappeared far, comma, as I heard him pick up a telephone receiver and dial.
Yeah, because otherwise you're trying to read far as together.
Yeah, because like and again, like I was kind of fumbling. I might actually keep some of my fumbles in this one. Like as I was reading this one, I kept wanting to say like he hadn't disappeared as far as like I kept wanting to like change it slightly, even though like I was like trying to read over it wrong.
Yeah, like he hadn't disappeared as far as I heard him pick up the telephone receiver and dial. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like I was in a weird space. Like sometimes when I read a story, I like my mind tries to predict what's about to be read or what's about to happen. Like because my eyes are seeing it like what's ahead subconsciously, so it's trying to like reconstruct it like ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so but that's the end of my grammar inquisitions. So Mikey, the E stands for evil.
All right. Well, I got one that you didn't, so that's good.
Son of a bitch.
A quote here: "I took a slug of water."
Yeah, that didn't sit well with me. I was like, I guess that could work, but what do you got for? Do you have a correction for that?
I took a swig of water.
Yeah, that's what it was missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
mean, the
slug...
water's filthy. There could be a slug in it.
Oh God. Oh. Yeah.
He did say he felt some sediments and stuff sliding down his throat. That may also be the slug.
Yes. Little escargot.
Mm-hmm.
That's snails, not slugs.
Whatever.
Snails are just slugs with shells.
Then I have an it story.
Is it just an it story?
Yeah, there was no front butts, no front and. Like, it's just front it.
And now, an it story with Mikey. The E stands for evil. Take it away.
It was about 5:30 p.m. when I drove into Pleasant Creek. It seems as though someone neglected to include Pleasant Creek on the map. It was a quaint town on the outside. It looked as though it had transported through time from the 50s. It didn't even sound as if electricity powered the unit. It was almost rancid. It was probably Alan talking. It was apparent now they were brother and sister, probably only a year apart and looking about 6 or 7 years old. It'd been so long since I heard that term. It was warm, and I could feel the sediment sliding down my throat. It was hard to argue with Joseph's logic. It almost felt as though something drew me here, but I couldn't say for sure. Finn.
Wow. In my head, it was a town, like this town did teleport from the 50s, but the process of teleporting the town, like the outside looks fine, but when you go inside, everyone's just been fused into the walls. And so it's just like it's just rancid smelling, and like I think that was Alan talking like on the wall. Or like
I assumed at that point it's saying like at that point, like it's first person, but then it zooms out to a narrator showing that Alan is the one driving the car and Joseph is next to him as they're having the conversation.
Maybe, I don't know. Like, and then like the way it was like the electricity wasn't going through like the or it sounded like electricity trying to get into the box or whatever that was. That kind of reminds like that's the time machine.
I saw that as at that point it was just describing the town.
Yeah.
Because like the town looked nice and quaint outside, but like as you get closer, the entire town looks like it's from the 50s. The entire town is filthy. The entire town looks like it doesn't have any power to it. Like all the descriptors of just that guy's store was spread
Yeah.
out to an entire town.
Yeah, so we weren't just seeing like the one building, we were seeing like the rest of the town just like the same way. Like it looks quaint from a distance, but then when you put your glasses back on, it's like, oh, there's all the rancid details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just the air itself is just full of just like random shit floating around. So like he was driving around like with the window down and talking to Joseph sitting next to him, and that's how he was getting like sediment going down his throat, just like from the air. So,
Yeah, because like, and I can actually relate to that because like, yeah, when you're driving on a dirt road, like you kick up a lot of sand and dust and stuff like that, and sometimes it does get ahead of you if you're slowing down and such. So.
Mhm. So yeah, that changed it a lot.
Yeah, brass tacks. There's no mention of the werewolf or the loop guru.
No.
So, wow.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Did you see it a different way as well, Mikey?
Yeah, I saw it sort of later describing.
Okay, cool.
I don't typically read these until the day of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's fair. And for those unaware, Mikey does these it stories and conjunction junctions and such to highlight all the sentences in a story that start with the words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ands, or buts, because there's always better words to use.
Indeed. So I was surprised this one didn't have as many as I thought it would. But I guess it's on to Gamer.
Okay. Pleasant Creek was a hunting town nestled somewhere in the heart of northern Ontario. Where exactly wasn't much of a mystery to the townsfolk as it was the mapmakers who placed all the towns and villages on these impossible-to-fold sheets. So when I read that, I'm like, what are you trying to say? I had to reread this multiple times to try to get it. Because, like, the location of the town wasn't a mystery to the townsfolk. You know, like all townsfolk of all towns, everyone knows where their town is.
To the townsfolk of Pleasant Creek, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a duh, you know? And then, like, the wording of the map makers feels weird because it's like, it wasn't much of a mystery to the townsfolk or the map makers.
Yeah, okay.
Who put the towns and villages on the maps. But the next line also says that the map he has doesn't have Pleasant Creek on the frickin' map. So
it's just sort of filler.
But it's also it's contradicting itself.
So what
there we go.
Yeah, I stumbled on that first sentence a lot too. I for some reason I didn't bring it up in my grammar Inquisition or didn't take a note of it. But I did get what I think it was trying to say. So it's like, where exactly wasn't much of a mystery to the townsfolk as much as it was to the map makers who placed all the maps and villages on those impossible to fold sheets. So it was like, basically it's saying like the townsfolk know where the town is, but obviously the map makers had trouble finding because they didn't put it on the map.
But it says it wasn't a mystery to the townsfolk.
Yeah.
As it was the map makers. So is that saying, but it was a mystery to the map makers?
Yeah. That's what it's trying to say. It's failing, but it's trying to say that.
So it should be like, the townsfolk of Pleasant Creek know where it is, but it seems even the map makers who put all the towns on these impossible fold sheets didn't even know where it was because it's not on my map.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically explaining that like the locals know where it is, but anybody like the guys who make maps and stuff of Canada and where all the towns are, they didn't know where it was because they didn't put it on the map.
Yeah. The confusing part to me was the as it was the map makers.
Yes.
It didn't sound like it was saying, but these people don't. It was sounding like the townsfolk and the map makers both know.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of the way it's written is a little confusing in that little bit.
Mm-hmm. Then I'll move on to my next one.
Okay.
This is in regards to the car. The transmission had begun to overheat, and after driving any distance now, it felt like something kicked me in the ass when I slowed to a stop. So for me, I don't know if I would leave it at any distance. Maybe go to any long distance would be more appropriate, because any distance also includes moving the car 10 feet.
Yeah, it also says that, like, in the next paragraph, like, it starts with, like, after every hour of driving, she would need to rest for at least 20 minutes before he could get it out into first gear. So it's like, it's sort of saying the same thing, but like a little bit more clear on how long he has to like drive the car before it starts acting up again.
Yes, and you're right. It does clarify it right after, but just putting one extra word in there, any long distance, that means both sentences are like even. They're both saying the same information, but one's elaborating it better.
Yeah.
So it's not. I don't have to go back over it and change what I'm thinking the car is doing.
Yeah, sort of like how in the story, like the car needs to rest after, like before he can even get it into first gear. This story needs a first sentence of vagary of like kind of a vague like description of what's going on before giving us the more detailed sentence of what's going on.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's so vague in the first one that it leads you to like basically create an idea in your head that isn't true. Kind of, at least to me, because I didn't know what it meant by any distance. But I'll move on. I got back in my car. After a few minutes idle, the air began to warm up. The coolness of the air conditioner would be a welcome feeling. I turned the ignition. The engine whirred and sputtered, but did not catch. So, when I first read this, I thought he got in the car and turned it on immediately, and it was sitting idle for minutes. And I was going to say, you don't have the gas to do this, bro. You don't have the gas. Why are you running the car? But then, like, he wasn't running the AC for a few minutes, like I thought it was saying as well.
Yeah.
Because I thought he got in, turned it on, and the AC was running for a few minutes before he did anything. Because it said the AC. I read it as the AC warming up.
Yeah, but I think it's just like because it was sitting out there in the sun or whatever, like the air had begun to warm up in the car.
Yeah. So the way
the
way I rewrote it was, I got back in my car. After a few minutes of sitting there thinking what to do, the air inside began to warm up. The coolness of the air conditioner would be a welcome feeling, so I turned on the ignition. The engine whirred and sputtered, but did not start. So he's sitting there, car's off, it's getting hot, I'm turning the car on to get some air.
And then it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that cleans that up nicely.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. My next one. There's a pattern here. That damned car caused me so many headaches in the past year. I almost wish I hadn't bought it. So, did he buy it in this condition? Otherwise, wouldn't it be better to say, like, you almost wish you sold it over a year ago? Like, before all these problems happened?
I mean, yeah. I mean, so if you got it like really cheap, like I mean, some people do buy like really cheap, crappy cars, like because that's all that they can afford.
Yes. However, I'm pretty sure early on he said that he's driven the thing into the damn ground and he won't sell it because he's had it for so long.
Yeah, a whole year.
No, longer than that.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, I was chuckling that. Yeah,
But yeah, here it's like if he's had it for like 10 years or even more. Like, why wouldn't he say, I wish I sold it before it got so bad or something,
Yeah.
'Cause if you had a car for so long and it's served you well and you're begrudgingly not selling it, even though it's falling apart, you wouldn't be saying these headaches of the past year make me wish I never bought in the first place. Because I'm sure he had like a decade of just a relatively proper working car that he enjoyed, hence why he loves it so much that he's wanting to keep it, so he wouldn't
why he'd rather
never buy it.
Yeah, honestly, that kind of goes right into my first actual thought, but I'll save that till we actually do the actual thoughts.
Okay, my next one's super simple, so we'll just end it up here. I could always tell when someone was lying, just like the way someone can tell when it's raining and they're standing outside in the middle of the street during a thunderstorm. So this one's kind of hard to read where the problem is on multiple ways. The problem is, it says, I could always tell when someone was lying to me, just like the way that some space one can tell. So that should also be someone together as one word, not some space one.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't catch it at first because the way that my screen is formatted, that sum was at the right end of the page, and the 1 was on the left side of the page, like at the next line down. Like, wait, that shouldn't have been broken up because it's someone. It's still talking about someone, not some one thing, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And that is all of my grammar in yellow.
All right. Well, hopping into actual thoughts then, and kind of segueing from the second last grammar question that you had.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with this comment here. Yeah, driving it had become a nightmare, but it served me well in the past, and I was not quite ready to part with it just yet. So that's like the very beginning of the story, as he's like talking about how crappy his car is and such, and how like it's. And even and my comment here was like, even though you're on the run for something, likely murder, as we find out by the end of the story, and need a quick and potentially inconspicuous vehicle, screw sentimentality. Ditch that car and hijack a new one. Like just because, like, especially since like he's not that far from like the town where he based on like when we find out later in the story, like Kapuskasing is like 60 kilometers away from where he ended up in Pleasant Creek. So it's like he's only 60 kilometers away from the town where he probably murdered some people.
Probably.
So and like the RCMP or the cops are looking for a conspicuous car, like an old Impala that like pops and the transmission like cries out every like couple of minutes.
Yeah, he probably shouldn't switch cars. You're right.
Yeah, he probably like screw this, like, oh, but I've had this car for years, and like she's my baby, and it's just like, yeah, no, ditch the Impala, get something better. find a Caravan. They're everywhere.
It's an Impala, it's an Intrepid.
Intrepid, that's what it is. I kept thinking it was an Impala, to be honest.
No.
Like, I read Intrepid and I envisioned an Impala
because I same.
You know what it is? Because the entire time I was picturing the old, like a muscle car like the Impala from Supernatural.
Oh
no, like from like in Supernatural, and because they're doing a new sequel, like a spin-off series to the Supernatural TV show called The Winchesters, and the Impala is like a major. Like it's practically a character in that series, so that's why I kept thinking of it when I was reading Intrepid.
Nice.
What's an Intrepid look like? Then
it's not an Impala. It's
not. Intrepid car. Yeah, that is not an Impala.
It really isn't.
God, it's almost like Captain Solanum's car right now.
Sort of, yeah. It's just kind of a generic 2000s-ish kind of car.
Yeah. I'm looking at what an Impala car just to make sure. Yeah, that is definitely not an.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, the comments, I could hear them now being typed. It's like, cultist, no, you're stupid.
Fine.
All right. Anyway, yeah. So yes, but my statement stands. Screw sentimentality. Get a new car.
Yeah.
And then moving on, speaking of the car and like his attachment to it, there was something almost erotic about pumping gas. A phallic-looking nozzle forcibly inserted into an opening just slightly big enough for it to somehow seem wrong. A gentle squeeze, and liquid would issue forth, filling the belly of my old girl. This guy, been on the Trans-Canada Highway a bit too long. Alone.
It's the first time that when you've been reading your note, I've just been sitting here with like face palming as you're reading it.
But like, my comment was like as I was reading it, I was like, this guy's been on the road a little too long alone.
My comment to that was, you wrote this, didn't you, cultist? I see you.
How dare you, sir? I did not.
Uh-huh.
My mind is sometimes in the gutter, not always. I was honestly like on the same board with you, just like kind of like, oh god. But
he really loves his car.
Yeah,
like loves his car.
Mm-hmm.
He likes it.
Mm.
I think he's put more than just a gas nozzle into that into the
yeah, probably
into that thing. Yep. Let's move on. That's gross.
Cool. That explains why the transmission's failing.
Aww.
Probably right. Yep.
But we digress. Moving along. Joseph Courant, a francophone whose family had been in Canada for almost as long as the natives, was the sole proprietor. Joseph, never Joe, was an elderly gentleman, possibly in his late 70s. And then it keeps going and going on with this very flavorful narrative description of the store clerk, Joseph, never Joe. And I shouldn't be complaining because I actually really enjoyed it. But it was like, is this character Nair setting out to like write his next great novel after he escapes whatever he did? Like, man's a poet, or like, and possibly a prophet with like how he knows these people's like family
I was
history.
gonna say, is he a psychic too? Like,
Yeah, like he knows like it's suddenly like it's like suddenly suddenly a disembodied narrator came in and was like, Joseph's family have been around since when the early French settlers came into Canada and set up little Pleasant Creek. Like it went on and on, like very flavorful and very like interesting. I was just like, this whole story is kind of being told from the first person perspective of Nair. Why does Nair know any of this? Or is this just like guesstimations of like he just likes I think Nair just likes like giving his own like backstory to people,
maybe.
based on when he sees them. Like it kind of gives his own inner monologue about people.
Or I wonder if when I first read it, I also was confused because I thought it was first person. Then all of a sudden it's a narrator, basically. But I thought maybe it's because like after the events of all this, he ends up staying in the town and getting to know people, and he learns their backstories after the fact. But no, probably not.
Based on what happened at the end of the story, no, I don't think so.
Entirely possible that when he consumes the flesh, he also consumes their memories.
Oh yeah, because like I know Lovecraftian ghouls do that when they eat somebody's brain, they actually gain their part of their personality and their all of their memories.
Mm-hmm. So it's possible that he consumed them, got their memories, and then decided to sit down and write a creepypasta about what happened.
Yeah, could be,
because no one will believe him anyways.
Yeah, like they'll just end up in the mental ward.
Like he gets it out of his conscience, right? That he did it. Like I told people, no one's gonna believe me, but I told them.
Oh, that would actually be a really fucking cool like seed idea for a game where you're like a bunch of like detectives or cops looking for a serial killer who keeps leaving letters, like these like messages, or like these like he keeps scrolling down like pages of pages of a story of like the life story of a family that he kills. And they're like, how the hell does he do this? And it's because when he, the serial killer is like a weird werewolf creature, like a monster that transforms into a monster. And after he's eaten a person, he is plagued by all of their memories. They're just flooding through his mind. And the only way to clear his head is to write down their story, their life, their family's life story.
Not just write down, but tell someone else. Someone else has to read it.
Yeah, so he's not like he acts funny until like one of the coroners or like the detectives find the story on paper, or he maybe like in the digital age maybe he just like types it up and posts it on like creepypasta.wiki or like a blog somewhere like deadsamples.blogspot.com. But yeah, like I kind of like that. I'm gonna jot down some of my own notes for this because I kind of like that as like a crime thriller like scenario with a supernatural twist. Is that like the killer is plagued by the memories of his victims until he like gets it out of his system and like has somebody else look at it.
Yeah, imagine if he killed like a family of 4 and he has all of their memories simultaneously.
And all of their family's memories, like basically like all like it's like their genetic memory of like that family, like how they were like at least like a couple of generations of the family.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like no wonder the guy's like deranged and like gotten even worse because he's like writing down like he has to get these things out of his head.
Yeah. Do you think it would be enough to stop him from killing in the future? But he really loves killing.
Either that, I was just about to say like maybe it's like part of the curse. Like he can't help like killing, like because it triggers like kind of sporadically, or when he gets too angry or like gets frustrated.
Yeah, because it's like
it
a
triggers
transformation situation.
Yeah, and then he doesn't know what he does while he's doing it. But then when he comes back to a human, he suddenly like overcome with like not just the blood in his mouth and the taste of long pig down his throat, but also like his head is just swelling with all of the memories and emotions of his victims. That actually sounds like a really cool idea. Yeah. But I'm going to move on to the next thing here before we get too stuck in the weeds of plot growers. So, my petite fils has a tow truck. I'll telephone him and he'll be right over to fix you up good. So I did a Google Translate. Petite fils is French for grandson.
Yes.
And that is not the first. This is not the last time that this will come up. That me Google translating will come
Likewise.
up. As I go into the next comment. So my next comment here. He hadn't disappeared far as I heard him pick up a telephone receiver and dial. Bonjour, Alain. C'est votre papier. And then the next thing the narrator saying is like, I almost wish I had learned French in high school. You and I both.
Yeah.
Thankfully. I wish I had remembered French class in high school, like my basic French in high school. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, for this and the rest of the French dialogue, I used Google Translate. And I also want to cover, before I go into the translation and such, in the story we did a couple of weeks ago, Kagekao, where it does something similar, where like we get like a different language, like the monster is speaking a different language, and the protagonist doesn't understand that language. So, but unlike this story that we're doing with Dead Simple, that story translated as well the dialogue that was being said in Japanese, and it seemed kind of off. I can't remember which side of the fence I was on for like if I liked it or not in story translation, but for this story specifically, for what Dead Simple, and the fact that we don't get a translation specifically in the story of whatever Joseph is saying to Alan, I really like that they weren't translated, and that I had to go separately from this story and translate it myself if I was curious.
Yes.
Because the character itself, Nair, didn't learn French or didn't learn much French in high school, so he doesn't understand what's being said to him.
Was Kagekao,
or what's being said about him.
Was it a first-person story? Or was it narrated?
Kagekao was not a first-person story.
Okay, then that's why he was translated.
Yeah, but I remember we had an issue with like the fact that it was translated in the story. Enough. But I can't remember. I don't. It's been a couple of weeks, if not like almost a month or more since we reviewed that. So I don't know where any of us sat on that. I know we had an argument about it, but
probably.
I mean, it is us.
Yeah, that's the thing we do.
Yeah. So yeah, this one. So yeah, it's Bonjour, Alan. C'est votre papier. I'm probably going to butcher the French because again, I barely remember my French in high school. So, yep. However, I'm pretty sure it says, "Hello, Alan. It's me, it's your granddaddy."
You know the way it translated for me?
It's your daddy?
He's your daddy.
Yeah. So there's a couple of times it's Google Translate. So I cleaned up the Google Translate to like what I thought was probably more or less being said in English. Like I tweaked it a little bit to make it sound better because again, Google Translate isn't a perfect translation. So yeah, so a lot of my stuff is going to be like I slightly modified it just so it read better in English and like probably what it made sense, what it actually was trying to say, rather than just like the straight translation where it can kind of become broken English.
I like my broken translation because it's like he goes back.
He's your dad.
He goes back and calls him. And he's like, "Your dad's here. He came back, basically."
Oh, man, maybe that. I mean, that could have also been it. It's like, Alan, your dad's here. He doesn't remember. He doesn't seem to recognize me.
Yeah.
Oh, that actually has even darker tones because, like, then that means Joseph, because Joseph is the granddad. So that means that like that's his son. Like, and that's why he was like Warren's like, we don't want you back here.
Yeah, back as in.
Oh shit! Did we miss an entire, or did I miss an entire like subtext of the story?
I don't think so because the next one gets translated to "There's a man here says his car isn't working."
Yeah, that one. That's what I got. I'm gonna actually future me is going to add in a proper I say proper. I'm just gonna like take this and just have like Google like say the sentence and then I'll just add that in.
Yeah.
So
Il y a un homme ici, dit que sa voiture ne fonctionne pas.
yeah, and that one was like you said. There's a man here says his car isn't working.
So if that wasn't said, or if it just said, he says his car isn't working, then maybe. But he does just straight up call him just a man, like he doesn't know who he is.
Yeah. So maybe
headcanon, I would love for him to be the father, but he is not the father.
Yeah. Well, and like because it could go either way at the end. Like either like he doesn't want him back, or because like he feels like some kind of connection to this place, and Joseph does kind of insinuate that they've had issues or encounters with loup garous in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want their kind here, like their people, their type here. So, because obviously it causes trouble, as we find out later, or at the very end of the story. But moving on to the next thing here. So it's again. Boop,
Non, je ne sais pas il a trouvé cet endroit.
and that is no, I don't know how he found this place. Is how I cleaned it up, like when it did the Google translation.
That's how it looked to me. I didn't even have to clean it.
I think there was something slightly off that was like.
Fair enough.
But I just like corrected like one word I think in it.
Yep.
And then that's the end of the French for the most part. I think there's one more later on, but I bâtard dégoûtant.
Yeah.
Mon Dieu, bâtard dégoûtant. And that's just my God, disgusting bastard.
Yes.
Because he's basically cussing in French.
Mm-hmm.
Tabarnak. One of you guys should have said, "What did you say?" Because tabernacle is apparently like one of the worst cusses in French Canadian cursing. Anyway, moving on to
there's a reason that when I occasionally swear in public or whatever, I say "Pardon my French."
Yeah,
they swear a lot.
Merde.
Mm-hmm.
I only know honestly before Mon Dieu bâtard dégoûtant, which I'm now going to add to my my repertoire. Like Mon Dieu, I knew merde, which means shit, and tabernacle, which is just like it's just the French equivalent of saying Jesus, because it's a religious word.
Oh,
that it's a French it's a religious word being used as an expletive. Like tabernacle is like a French, it's part of like a church choir kind of thing, or like has something to do with like the church, like chorus.
See. Yeah.
But it's just, and a lot of French Canadian, and I'm not sure, maybe it's also French like swear words in general, like they tend to be just like a word associated with like the church itself or like religion that's just an expletive. So
I don't know if it's Google Translate or not, but if you do English to French and type in shit, it comes out as merde. If you do English to French and type in fuck, it comes out as merde, but with a capital M.
So merde is basically like shit or fuck.
And I thought I hated English. They have two exact words for two very different things.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Going back just aside from Mon Dieu, like the Mon Dieu bâtard dégoûtant, we go to the part where the kids encounter him at the picnic tables, and it's like, "You ask," he demanded of his sister. She giggled back to her brother and poked at him. "You wanted to know? Great Grandpa says you're a loup garou," the boy finally let out. He said, "What?" I was in shock. It had been so long since I'd heard that term. Most people didn't believe in my kind anymore. Those who did were too afraid to say anything for fear that doctors locked them up. And I was like, wait, what? That was not what I expected for the reaction. I had initially expected this to start like the start when Nair like is like, what did he say? Like not knowing what a loup garou was, or as it said, like it's like I hadn't heard that term in a while, like him knowing slightly about it, because and for those of you not know, I brought up a little bit earlier, but loup garou is basically a French Canadian term for werewolf. There's a lot of werewolf legends in and around Quebec that they use loup garou as the term for them.
Is there any functional difference between a werewolf and a loop guru, or is it just a different word for the same thing?
Yes, actually. So werewolf transforms on the moon. Like traditional werewolf, like the traditional popular werewolf, they transform on the moon. They're allergic to silver, right? Loop gurus have a slightly more varied setup. They can I think they have different triggers for being turning into werewolves. Like this one, I think actually anger, like they can turn from just anger, like not even like with the full moon out.
Right, I didn't even think about that. Like if he's a traditional werewolf, where's the full moon? Right. Okay.
Yeah. Also, loop gurus can be hurt by onions. In some of the legends.
Interesting.
There's a couple of other like banes that loop gurus can suffer from.
I will get on making an onion knife right now, just in case.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, so Farfetch, the weapon of a Farfetched.
Yes.
Now I want to run a game where you're a Pokemon trainer with a Farfetch who hunts down werewolves in the Pokemon world. Damn it.
What does he actually use
moving
Pokemon? Like a leek or something?
Yeah, which is a type of onion.
Oh, is it? I don't know.
Okay. But yeah, so going back to this, yeah, when he like what did he say? Like a loop guru? I've heard that term, but I wasn't sure what it was. And then like the story would have him attacked by one, not be one, and admit it so openly to the reader.
Yeah.
Like that threw me right off. Like that threw me for a loop. But then as I was thinking about it, like as I was reeling from that, like from him like just saying that he was, I started like thinking back on like some of the writing, and there are hints of it. It's just really subtle hints in the story before that kind of show that he was like a loop guru.
Like longing to run into the forest.
There's a lot of description of him smelling the place.
Yes.
And like smells and stuff like that, and then like he's running from his troubled past, and we immediately assume that it was like a criminal thing, not that he was a monster.
Yeah, something mundane.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually like that sent me reeling, but like in a good way. I was like, I was not expecting this, and I'm just like, I like suddenly put my hand under my chin. It's like, and I have to start reading the story more.
Reading intensifies.
Yeah, exactly. Just like I'm just vibrating as I'm reading. Reading intensifies. And then my last actual thought here is that near the end. I'm not going to go into the whole thing at the end. Like I could read the entire end bit, which I love. I really enjoyed, but I'm just going to read this part here. That's about when it happened. By God, I didn't want it to happen, but it did. Much like it did every other time. Why I had to leave Kapuskasing in the first place. So, and then it goes on and like him transforming and not having recollections at the time of what he did until after he comes back to human form. And then the whole like long pig comment afterward as well. And I was like, I was not expecting this to be a werewolf story, or that Nair was the werewolf. Like, it feels like this story, to me anyway, was setting up this little off the map town and its townspeople to be the focus of the horror, like cannibals or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not be the victims of a werewolf. Good job to the story and the author for kind of subverting expectations and bait and switching it. Because I did not see it coming, and I enjoyed that I didn't see it. Now I'm sure you guys one of you guys probably saw it coming a mile away, so like I'm just stupid. But
wow.
But yeah, like I really enjoyed that. That whole like that last bit was like I was just reeling from the revelation. What a revelation of what was going on. So yeah. But yeah, that's my actual thoughts until our final thoughts. So Mikey, the E stands for evil.
Alright. So my first actual thought here is from when the protagonist is suddenly underwater. So the quote here: I suddenly became aware of eyes upon me. I looked out my side window. 2 urchins.
Nice. Like sea urchins.
Yeah, I
Yep.
get it. Yeah,
You get it?
I get it. It's a play on the word.
I like playing with my words. So I appreciate that you also like playing with your words.
God, I hate you. Mon Dieu, I hate you.
Here you go.
Wait, hang on. What's the word? What's the
Petard
sentence for I hate? Yeah, yeah, no, legitimate. Yeah, Mon Dieu, petard, bigotant. Hang on, I'm gonna actually look up a French word for I hate you. Mon Dieu, je te déteste. Yeah, okay.
I'll
All
counter that with my own. Mon Dieu, vous beau bâtard. Which is, my God, you beautiful bastard.
Nice. We should also specify, like, because this is Mikey's being critically silly on this.
That's
Like,
right.
urchin is a term for like a dirty child
Yes.
or dirty poor child generally, but yeah, like a street urchin.
We went a long way before actually describing that or clarifying that rather.
Yeah, I was gonna let it go, but then we kept like talking, like we kept doing like Mon Dieu, you beautiful bastard. But then I was like, all right, maybe we've treaded this long enough. I should probably actually bring that up just before we end it.
My next actual thought, which might be grammar, I'm not sure, but here's the quote: "I slammed open the door, and the cherry bells above rung out." So
The what?
slamming open usually doesn't really work because the door would have to hit something for it to be slammed.
The wall.
Like
But
pushing the wall.
most
like, and
convenience stores, most convenience stores have the things on the door that stop it from going too far to hit the wall.
It would still hit that though. Right?
Yeah, it still hit the
Yeah.
cherry bells.
No, but I'm
Yeah.
saying it would still hit the stopper. And that would still make a loud noise.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking more of those devices that are on the top of the door.
Oh, like it's
Um,
like a shock.
Yeah.
This place looks like it's out of the 50s or something.
50s.
So
Yeah.
probably not.
Also, I just realized, did no one look up like cherry bells?
No, because I knew exactly what they were. When you
What
open,
the hell's it?
when you walk into a convenience store and it goes like ding ding.
Yeah, but the cherry bells. I guess it's like describing them as like cheerful like sound, because like I'm googling it right now and I'm not getting cheery at all. Like cherry bells.
It's
Well, it's basically just a bell that
Yeah.
rings when the door opens.
Okay.
and he may be describing
So-
them as cherry because it's like two bells close together that look like cherries.
But it's not spelled cherry, it's spelled cheery,
Oh, is
as in
it?
like
I read it as cherry.
CHEERY. I know, yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah, and then I looked, I was like, wait, no, it's spelled cheery. So grammar inquisition possibly, but
Or maybe cheery sounding bells.
yeah.
Mhm. The next actual thought here, I'm going to go back to a quote that was in Grammar Inquisition, but it's not Grammar Inquisition. Uh,
Mikey here
quote-
breaking all the rules.
We have
well, it's that I sort of like the analogy that he was going for.
Okay.
And the quote is, "I could always tell when someone was lying, just like the way someone can tell when it's raining when they're standing in the middle of the street during a thunderstorm."
Yeah.
So, like, it's just so plainly obvious that he can tell when someone's lying.
Yeah. For some reason, I keep wanting to like add on an extra analogy of like, I can always tell when somebody's lying. Like someone can tell they've just been hit by a semi truck head on. I don't know why. Like I kept having this analogy of being struck by a semi truck.
What do you mean kept like repeatedly? This came up.
No, yeah. Like every time I read it, like when I first read it, like last night, And then when we're here, like we kept when you brought it up in the grammar position, and then Mikey's brought up now, I kept like wanting to add that analogy rather than the rainstorm.
Oh, okay. It is a lot shorter and to the point than it's a little drawn out with the rainstorm.
Yeah. Well, as we've established, Nair is a bit of a poet.
Yes.
So.
And he isn't even aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
That sound is what I live for.
Mon Dieu. Merde.
Alright. So, my next actual thought is when I was reading this, I was looking for the creepy factor.
Yeah.
And the creepiest thing, before being told what the creepy thing is, was the kids.
I'm
because
with you.
they're
Mm-hmm.
because they show up and then they're gone. They just run away. And then
When they showed up, they were staring at him with their mouths open, like with their face against the glass, basically.
Yeah. That's like you really never want to have that happen to you when you're off the Trans-Canada Highway in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. And there's just two kids just staring at you as you're like trying to get your car to start. Like it's just not a good time. Like that shit just is like it oozes creepy fodder.
I feel like if you were a kid again, cultist, and you had the knowledge that you have now, if you were in that situation,
I'd be doing this like every.
You'd be doing it, and you'd be heightening it. You'd be like licking your lips. You'd be like, "He looks delicious."
Yeah, 100%. Like I would 100% be doing this if I could go back in time and like with the knowledge I know now,
Yes.
like just like I would create entire urban legends in the places I lived.
Yes.
yeah. So continuing on my actual thought, when it came to the point where it said, Grandpa says you're a loup-garou, the boy finally let out, for me that came out of Left Town.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I was really, really expecting the kids to be creepy.
Yeah, honestly, I was expecting this entire town to be creepy. Like
the kids in the town are creepy. It's just they're not the problem.
Yeah, and I did say like earlier, like after getting the revelation, I thought back on what had been written and what I had read previously, and there were some hints about Nair being a loup-garou to a degree, but they are very subtle, and you'd only notice them if you knew as soon as you get to this point of like he's a loup-garou.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like, the part with him running in the forest, I thought it's just like, because he's surrounded with trash right now, he would much rather go running in that nice smelling forest than out here where all this garbage is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the whole wait for the tow truck. It's like, oh, it's going to be 3 hours. And 3 hours passed quickly, as I dreamed. Like, well, that was quick.
Yeah. It's going to take 3 hours. This story is only 7 pages long, so we're just going to skim past those 3 hours.
3 hours later.
Yeah, legitimately. Like he is it is kind of state that he's like dreaming or daydreaming while he's waiting there, but like that's also a bit of a long wait for a small town like this. Like I thought Alan would probably have lived in the same town, but I don't know, I could be off.
Oh yeah, true. What the hell took him so long? Did he have to like fix his truck first?
Yeah, he had to get his car. Well, I was like, again, at this point, like I was still wondering, like, if the town was going to like kill him or something, like kill Nair or go after Nair.
Yeah.
So like, I was still trying to I was thinking of like the worst case, like, what are they plotting that it's going to take 3 hours for them to prep?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Nair didn't go like, what the hell? Why is it going to take him 3 hours to get here?
Yeah. Where are they? Kenora? Thunder Bay?
Well, basically, my explanation is it's the default answer for when you call a towing service. They say, "Oh yeah, we'll be there in 3 hours," and then they typically get there sooner. But
Yeah.
it's basically to cover their ass in case it does take 3 hours for
Okay.
them to get there.
Gotcha. Actually, okay, yeah. I finally thought I checked it like when I first found this story, like where Kapuskasing is, and yeah, it's on the Trans Canada Highway, Highway 11, and it's basically between like it's a ways, but it's like between like Timmins is to its south, and like Thunder Bay is like a good stretch to its west. So
Okay.
I'm actually curious now how far it is from Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay. Oh, never. It's 6.5 hours from Thunder Bay. So, yeah, it's up there in the middle of the Canadian Shield. There's a ton of towns around it. So, but yeah, sorry, slight tangent.
Yeah. And then my next actual thought, which is my final actual thought before we get to final thoughts, is if he hates the car so much, why does he explode at the end? Like, it just, to me, that doesn't make sense. He's explaining how it's basically a rust bucket that's on its last legs.
Their relationship is complicated.
Yeah,
He clearly loves that car.
Yeah, their bond is stronger than logic.
You heard him.
It's
about the gas nozzle. You know.
It's also probably a very toxic relationship. Like he probably abuses that car.
Yeah.
So, but my thought process is that the tow truck is at fault, so they have to deal with it technically. But he blows up, and yeah.
I mean, the guy Alan was kind of being a dick too. Not like in a bad way, but like not in like an intentional way. But he's like, "Oh, it's not that bad." I mean, and it's like your whole blade arm's off, the radiator's leaking, the lights cracked up. It's not that bad. We can get it. It's no problem. Don't worry about it. It's like, no, I'm like, are you gonna pay for it?
He didn't get to answer that. He could have said yes.
However, like again. If he's like since he is a loop guru, like werewolf lore and stuff, it tends to like where they tend to be like the curse or like the nature tends to make them more aggressive and more like kind of quick to temper, right? So
yeah, but in that case, like Joseph being a jerk to begin with could have set him off.
Or it was the primer, like he was getting primed for like all the agitation. Like
the needle that
like the guy was being, like Joseph was being sketchy, not letting him or there was no gas in the gas station. This place is like sparse and empty. Like Joseph's being unhelpfully helpful, like in a way. Then like the car doesn't work. Goes back inside to talk to Joseph. Get a phone call. Joseph is saying, "I don't have a phone," and then he's like, "Man, I just need a tow." It's like, hang on, let me call my grandson. It's like, I thought you didn't have a phone. It's like, not a public phone. It's like, oh, you son of a bitch. I'd be getting frustrated, honestly, at that point. Even at that point.
Here's some water that has shit floating in it.
Here's sediment and so that. Oh, you're going to have to wait 3 hours. 3 fucking hours in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere, Northern Ontario.
Hey, grandkids, can you go up to the Loop Guru and call him a Loop Guru for me? Thanks.
Yeah, can you accuse him of being a monster? And then like he goes out there, like gives him the water, like then he gets some snark from the guy, like, well, what? Like my water too good for you, you son of a bitch. Like, and then like then he gets the warning. It's like we don't lack your kind here. You're gonna have to leave soon.
What are you
like
doing?
kind of like that mentality going. So it's like there's a lot of things kind of just slowly building up over the course of the story, and it's like, yeah, no wonder he fucking snapped. Heck, I go to get my tires changed at the mechanics or at the dealership, and I get frustrated when I have to wait more than 45 minutes.
Yeah. He's waiting 3 hours
So-
and they're damaging his car further.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how
Calm
many
down.
like hurdles he had to climb over.
Yeah.
So much shit happening to him.
So, Mikey, I politely agree to disagree on your stance here. As someone who's quick to temper when it comes to car repair and such, quick to anxiety at the very least. I've been hurt I've been hurt too many times.
Yeah. Well, the other way it could have gone, because clearly they cut off Alan.
Yeah.
Is that it's not too bad. We can get that fixed overnight if you just go to this. What was that animatronic place in that movie called?
If you just go to Willy's Wonderland,
That's it.
and you just got to clean up the. Oh my God! It's the same plot line.
It actually is.
For anybody listening, go check out Willy's Wonderland, which is basically Five Nights at Freddy's, but if Nick Cage was the janitor.
And never said a word. And was
It is
also John Wick.
amazing. Yeah, it's a horror comedy, but it has no right being as good as it is.
And I wish it wasn't
Nick
as short
Cage,
as it
honestly-
was.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty, honestly.
Like, no joke.
Um,
We're not even joking
Yeah,
about
no, we're not even joking. Like, legitimately, go see it. It's fun.
Yes. Yeah, and that's into Maxilbot.
All right. Then Gamer.
Okay. I stepped out of my rapidly aging Intrepid. Because it's an Intrepid, not an Impala, by the way.
You say that, I immediately filled it in and said Impala
Really?
in my head.
Even after we
Yeah,
give you
I
shit
know.
for it?
There is something wrong with my head
It's
right now.
fine.
Like I keep like you're like out of my quickly aging Impala. Like that's you said Intrepid. I registered. You said Intrepid. My mind translated to Impala.
He must be Impala. He said it wrong. But regardless,
Yeah.
in regards to it being rapidly aging, I'm assuming that's not just because he's entered an anti-technology zone that surrounds Pleasant Creek, which rapidly rusts and decays any functional tech.
That sounds like a really cool idea for a
It
game.
is.
Or take the rust monster from D&D, like the giant like crustacean bug monster that like just rusts and ages everything, and just make that like put that into the modern day, and it's either just like an area effect it has, or it is, because it's been translated to a modern era setting, it is more of an anomaly than an actual creature.
Or take that creature and
Like
turn it into Dogscape. The entire land is that creature.
Oh God. Yeah, the Canadian Shield around that sits underneath Pleasant Creek is just a rust monster.
Wow.
My God.
What type of metal do you think that Canadian Shield is made out of? Rusty metal.
Oh.
Because it's a rust monster. I don't know.
Yeah, I got
Okay,
it.
cool.
Yeah.
Then, in regards to the car, after every hour of driving, she would need to rest 20 minutes, blah, 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 blah. Driving has been a nightmare, but served me well in the past, blah, blah, blah. You've already said this. However, I don't know how to view the relationship he has with this car, whether it's like a guy pushing a dying horse to its destination, or that said dying horse really trying its heart out to finish its job. The latter being truly intrepid, honestly. Because the word intrepid is an adjective which means fearless and adventurous.
Probably why they chose that for the branding.
Yeah, totally.
Of
Because
that
it'll
car.
last until it falls apart, apparently. At least this guy's version of it.
Yeah.
But I'll move on. This is in regards to the gas pump. Ancient dials on it still read the last amount of gas that the last customer had pumped. 48 liters of heart-stopping 35... Oh, at a heart-stopping 35 cents a liter. That couldn't be right. We get to the true horror, the inflation of gas prices these days.
Hey, I actually had a note for this, but I took it off because as like kept reading the story, it's like, okay, never mind. I'm like yeah, I thought it would be superfluous. However, since you're bringing it up, I'm going to bring up my
Okay.
bit. So as soon as I 35 cents for a gas, that can't be right. I was like, guys, I'm moving.
Yeah, that too.
Like, as someone who has had to pay like $100 a week almost on just a full tank of gas, yeah, I'm moving to Pleasant Creek. I don't care what horrors I have to deal with.
Let's be real; those horrors are a selling feature for you.
You're right.
Like, let's be real.
Yeah,
but I shall move on.
Wow.
This is in regards to Joseph speaking to him. By the way, so when he first read, his name was Joseph, and then in brackets after it says, what does it say?
Francophone?
Ever Joe or something like that?
Oh, yeah, Joe, or Joseph, never Joe, was an elderly gentleman, possibly in his late 70s.
When you first read that, it almost sounded like you said his full name was Joseph Neverjoe. Like, Neverjoe was his last name.
Did we get it? I don't think we got... Oh, no, we did get a last name. We got Courant.
Did we?
Yeah, Joseph Courant.
Oh yeah,
a Francophone whose family had been in Canada, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I prefer Neverjoe, but that's fine.
Yeah, or it's Joseph Neverjoe Courant.
Yeah.
Like, Neverjoe's his middle name.
Works. I'll accept that. Regardless, Joseph says, the first thing he says to him is, something I can help you with? His accent was unmistakably Bushwhacker North. So, basically, we all know what that sounds like, but it should have also been said that it's French as well, because I didn't immediately get French vibes from Bushwhacker North.
Yeah, I got like more redneck than French Canadian.
Yes.
And like, yeah, like I try, like, as it went on, like when he started going into more of his French stuff, I started going into like, I tried like inflecting a French accent even while I was reading it aloud. But yeah, I kept going into like rednecky a little bit more than
it kind of
French
seemed like
Canadian.
he got more and more French as it went on, because towards the end he said a line,
He is, like,
and then Nair is like, after reading through his thick accent, I answered him. Like, it took him a little bit to think about what he said. Meanwhile, that's the only time he stuttered on what he was saying. Like, because he knew right away before. So I didn't know he was French right away, basically. And also, when he was described Bushwhacker North, I immediately viewed him as one of the bushwhack. As soon as he said that he's Bushwhacker North, I immediately viewed him as one of the bushwhackers from the old WWF.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what he looked like to me. Look it up. Look it up
See,
real quick.
Okay. Yeah, Bushwhacker? What is it called?
WWF Bushwhackers. That's his face.
Oh, God. I can't. Yeah, okay, hang on. Their faces.
Yeah, their entire shtick was making stupid faces and like licking the side of each other's heads, I think.
Oh my God. See, I was thinking of the guy who plays Marv from what's it called? From Home Alone. Daniel Stern. That's how I envisioned him looking like. Is like an older Daniel Stern.
Fair enough.
Because he was the main actor in Bushwhackers.
Oh yeah, that was a good movie.
It really wasn't that great of a movie.
I had fun with that.
Yeah, sure.
Regardless, it says he's bald, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. So the Bushwhackers from the WWE were way better
because they're pretty much bald. Them older, like they're already losing their hair back then, so I'm sure they're bald as hell now.
Yep.
Anyways, regardless, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd my notes go? There we go.
Where am I? Oh God, I'm in Pleasant Creek.
And then my last note is basically just in regards to the twist ending, which isn't really a twist, because him being a loop guru was called out many a paragraph ago. Honestly.
Was it? Did I miss something?
When the kid said, "You're a freaking loop guru," and he said, "Yeah, I am."
Oh yeah, no, no. Like, that's, for me, that was when the twist happened.
Like, technically that is, but then at the end, the transformation, you see it coming a mile away because they say he's a loop guru.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think they were trying to like pull one over on you. I think we were basically waiting for the inevitable to happen once we got the primer of he's a loop guru. So,
yeah, after the transformation, and realizing that, oh right, he could just transform when he gets angry. After knowing that and going back over it and reading Alan backing up the truck and seeing that he's like visibly sweating, I'm assuming now that's because he knows that he's a werewolf and he doesn't want to fuck this up and anger him. It's not because it's hot out.
His granddad
even though
probably
it is
told
hot
him about
out.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his granddad like warns the town basically that they have a loop guru in town.
That being said, he didn't warn him on the phone.
No, well, not that again. There's 3 hours, so maybe he made another call.
Maybe it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Or when he showed up, he's like, "Dude, he's a loop guru." It's like, oh, fuck, really? I would have came out here.
Shit.
Just don't hit his car. I swear.
Or like he called him, and that's why it took 3 hours because he was like basically getting like a bunch of like getting onions and silver stuff.
Totally. But yeah, I guess that's about it for my notes.
Okay. So I suppose we'll move on to final thoughts. So it had a lot of character in the writing for me. I enjoyed that. The bait and switch caught me off guard. Like not like oh he transformed. Like when the kids just blatantly tell him that like say that are you a loop guru? You're a loop guru, right? And like our grandfather said, and then him admitting it and like that threw me off. And then it was a really cool but it was like in a good way for me. There's some things that the story needs to get kind of fixed a little bit, like grammar wise, but I mean it's not as bad as some of the other stories we've done. And there, I mean, again, like there's all like Gamer often says, nothing's ever perfect. So
nothing is who was phone except who was phone.
Yeah, exactly. Unless the phone in the behind the curtain,
Alan was
Joseph
phone.
goes to. Alan was phone.
Oh my God.
The phone call is coming from inside the gas station. But yeah, there are a few questions by the end of the story, but I don't feel they necessarily need answering. Like, I'd love to see more of this character and like the setup developed. But otherwise, like I'm also fine with it being left as like just this like vignette of a story of like just like this guy going into this town. You think that the town's going to be the scary thing, but then it turns out the scary thing is actually the narrator. Like those are always kind of a fun little like short story trope or genre. So yeah, I don't think anything's changed. Like we've talked about a fair bit about the story, like the lows and highs, but ultimately the highs outweigh the lows for me. So I'm going to still recommend this story. Mikey, D stands for evil.
Well, the thing that annoyed me was that if you take away the supernatural, take away the loop, take out the loop guru.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And the story still remains intact for the most part because his car breaks down. He has to wait 3 hours for a tow truck, only for it to be damaged, and then he just blows his top.
Yeah.
And kills everyone. And it's revealed earlier that he's sort of getting away from the city. So, and as Cultus pointed out, we assume that's for criminal reasons.
Yeah.
So, in that aspect, does it need the supernatural?
Probably not, but I mean, like, you could do either or in this case.
Mm-hmm.
Although if there's no supernatural, there's no twist because it says right away he's getting away from previous town because of reasons, and then those are the reasons.
Yeah. Also, the Loop Guru angle is interesting because, like, when you go up to that far, like to that location, like up near I really apologize.
I'm really
if I'm saying
glad that
wrong.
Mikey and I have never had to say this word, and you've had to say it like 15 times. It's hilarious.
Yeah, the town of Kapuskasing. I'm sure I've said it wrong, and I'm going to continue to apologize. I'm Canadian. Hello. But like that whole stretch of like the Northern Ontario area is a like Timmins specifically, and like north of Timmins, there's a lot of French settler towns and such. So to me, like the use of the Loup Garou in that area actually like made a lot of sense for if you're going to have a supernatural thing, not just have it be like a standard werewolf or something.
as like you're saying, not
Well-
supernatural at all. Which honestly, I believe most of the time, non-supernatural is scarier than supernatural because it could actually happen.
For sure, but there is also kind of a thing where like you want to use the supernatural thing as a so your story isn't too like squiggy or like too skeevy and like real. Like sometimes like for like it's good to have like a catharsis, which is where like kind of where you use the fantastical in place of a mundane aspect.
Well, and I mean, for me, the drop of Loup Garou, Cameron have left town, and the author had 3 hours in story where he could have explained what the protagonist was dreaming of. Like, dreaming about running through the forests and potentially hunting something. Like, and then at the end, you could have Alan yell, "Loup Garou!" or something. Like, add more foreshadowing to the Loup Garou is what I would have enjoyed more.
Okay.
That's fair.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's where I stand.
Okay, cool.
You did not say your recommendation,
And
did
gamer.
you?
I gave it at the beginning.
I forgot.
So you're sticking with your not recommendation.
Right, I
Yes.
forgot. It's up
Gotcha.
there now.
Okay.
So okay.
Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get back. We'll get used to
Format
this.
is weird.
Mhm.
Yeah, for me though, the story went by okay. It was nice to see a story from the eyes of the monster. I say monster, but you don't truly get to see what happens when he changes, like we assume. But
Yeah.
like, and also we shouldn't see what happened when he changes in this case because he doesn't have his full mental faculties when he transforms, so he wouldn't have memory of it, so we wouldn't know because this is first person. It's not told by a narrator, even though his name is Nair. Shit's confusing. It's fine.
Well, only Nair because it's a placeholder
Yes, I
name.
But yeah, the story went well. It tied up any threads that it started. I'm kind of surprised that the locals didn't bend over backwards to help him, though, knowing what we know, or knowing what they know about Nair. Like, Joseph was being kind of a jerk to him. And
Yeah.
if he knows his shit, which he should at this point, he should know, don't piss him off. Just don't do that. Like, so why is he being like passive aggressive and just kind of a jerk to him? These should be like, when he shows up, these should be the most enthusiastic, helpful people to the point that they are creepy because of how helpful and nice they are. That's how nice they should be to him right now. But they're the opposite of that for some reason. Do they have a death wish?
Yeah, honestly, that was one. If again, out of the questions that I said, like that I feel that the story could needs to be answered. That's kind of up at the top. Is like, how does Joseph know that Nair is a Loup Garou? Like, how is that so obvious?
He
to
just
Joseph?
knows.
Like,
It's like when you're standing outside in a thunderstorm. You know it's raining.
so like, as Nair knows that Joseph's lying to him, Joseph knows. So as Nair knows that Joseph is lying to him, like somebody knows that it's raining while they're out in the street in a thunderstorm. Joseph knows that Nair is a Loup Garou, as a person knows when they've just been struck by a semi truck head on.
Brought it around, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, that would make it seem like they're going to be the antagonist in this because of how creepy and obsessive they are with like taking care of his every need while he's there and cleaning the place up quick for him and stuff like that because that's a mess. It would,
and honestly, like,
it would make the twist better because it's focusing on the humans being so nice to him, which is not normal.
Yeah, and like, I don't know what this says about me and my views on like small towns, and so obviously it's skewed by pop culture and like horror movies and stuff. But like, yeah, if the story went that way of like the town is like being really polite and really nice to this guy, I'm immediately thinking, A, they're Canadian.
Yeah.
but B, they're cannibals that are basically prepping, like trying to treat their next meal with like they're trying to butter up their meal both emotionally and like physically.
Yeah. Which is also a way it could go. Maybe werewolf meat is really tasty.
Yeah, maybe. If that's yeah. Or this suddenly becomes cannibal or redneck cannibal versus werewolf or versus loup garou.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of those like really bad sci-fi sci-fi movies.
But regardless, in a way, I kind of do feel like, or do wish it stayed with Joseph and the townsfolk being the horror, because again, it kind of the way everything is described, it seems like they're the weird ones and he's normal.
Yeah,
and like yes, I know Nair is a loup garou, and that doesn't have to change. But just because he's a monster doesn't mean he has to be a monster. If you know what I mean. Zangief said it best.
It's like the Wreck-It Ralph. yeah, like in the Wreck-It Ralph movie. Just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean he's a bad guy.
And it'd be interesting to see him like avoid trying to be captured or killed by the townsfolk, while he's also trying to avoid turning into a loup garou because he doesn't want to kill them because he
doesn't like going on the run and like actually killing. So he doesn't want to kill any of these people. And so he's trying his best to, like, while the rest of the town is just losing their shit and trying to kill him, because it's that kind of mob mentality that you get from like Frankenstein, where like Frankenstein's monster wasn't actually wasn't super the monster. A lot of the time, the mob that's chasing him is portrayed as the monster.
Yeah.
Like he just wants to live.
Sure. Yeah. It'd be kind of cool to do this in a way like you have Nair as the loup garou. Like he's not like it's hinted he's a loup garou, whatever, and all that. Bad things are happening. Townsfolk are trying to kill him. Eventually, he turns, and then at that point in the story, at the whole point of the story, it's been first person basically through his eyes, and then at that point, it shifts perspective to like the main townsfolk person seeing him transform,
switches to Joseph,
and then all of a sudden he has to try to survive as Nair is murdering all of his friends, and he has to like get away and stuff like that. What type of story is that where the perspective changes?
I think it's a transitionary story.
I mean, that sounds about right.
Let me quickly Google that. Story changes the perspective.
I don't think we've read many stories that switch like that, and this is a cool example to do that in my opinion.
I think it might just be called a perspective story, or like hang on,
Did I invent something cool?
I doubt it.
No, I doubt it. You're an idiot.
No. I didn't mean it that way. I meant like everything's been done, so I'm sure there is a term for it. It's like how I found out that like basically the found footage equivalent of a story is epistolary, where it's like all done through like scrap pieces and stuff of that of different like bits of media. What is it called when a story changes perspective?
Sounds like a simple question.
Yeah, you think so? I'm like doing so far. I'm just finding literary device. Like the literary device of it is an alternate point of view. Is a complicated narrative form, but if done the right way, it can make for a very captivating read. The technique combines the depth of a single character's perspective with the versatility of switching between characters. So yeah, it's an alternative POV.
Okay.
Is it's a literary device in stories. It's not a specific genre of story, as far as I can find. If anybody out there who's listening to us has an answer, as like if there's actually a genre of that kind of story, or like aside from alternate POV, please leave us a comment in the comment section wherever this is posted, or on Twitter, or an email.
That being said, from the sounds of it, this sort of thing would make it a lot harder to write, and especially because if it's in first person, it has to sound like it's a different person, like not just their voice, but the way that they're describing and seeing things as well.
Yeah.
So it'd be very hard, but it'd be an interesting take on it.
Actually, hang on. What's a second person point of view?
Isn't that someone?
I've never actually
someone telling a story about someone else or something.
A second person narrative is a story where the main character's actions and thoughts are expressed using the personal pronoun you to address the reader. The story is unique due to the implication that the reader is the main character of the story. Literary novels written from this point of view are very rare. So it's like, you are going to this place, you are walking into Joseph's store.
So
you
when
are
we do D&D night, you're telling us second-person stories.
Yeah,
we're helping you create
basically
second-person stories.
Yeah, that honestly, that's a very tabletop RPGs are probably a very good example of like common use of second-person perspective stories.
Wow.
We learned something today here
in my extremely
And
drawn-out recommendation section.
Yeah. Yeah, and if anyone wants to listen to our tabletop RPG games, they can check out our sister podcast, One Less Die, which is an actual play podcast with a variety of different systems and campaign settings that we
Nice
run.
plug.
Yeah, in the middle of your
That's
final
fine.
thoughts.
Mine tend to get dragged out anyways. So regardless, I like the story. There's obviously ways to make it better. What was here was good. The twist I did not see coming, just like you, but the twist happened a little early for me. I kind of wish it was said a little later so it could be more surprising.
Yeah, it was just like, it wasn't so much the twist. There was no twist ending in this. It was like suddenly a twist in perception of like who what exactly is going, what the situation is. The situation is, it's like a government official, like, the situation has changed, sir. He's a loop. He admits he's a loop guru.
Yep. But in my opinion, I would like the double change where it's changed. He's a loop guru. Oh, but it's changed. He's a loop guru, but he's not a dick, and the people around you that you thought were dicks before are actually still dicks. You know?
Yeah, like they're not actually, like, he's like, yeah, it's like you thought they were going to suddenly become the victims. No, they're still assholes. They're still the monsters. The monster is now the victim.
So then they start chasing him, and then he does turn into the monster. Then joke's on you again. They are going to be the victims now.
The triple Hamlet.
Also, the very final thing I have to say, what is dead simple about this? The title.
You're kind of right. Like, what is dead simple about this? Like, I kind of found a way to use it for that RPG scenario fodder, like earlier, like where like the guy is like jotting down the life stories of the people he kills on like a blog entry that's just dead samples. Or like dead sample, like, because it's a sample of the dead, right? But like, what's dead simple about this story? It's, in fact, it's dead complicated.
Yeah, but in a good way. But regardless, there's nothing simple about it.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the title is supposed to indicate here. Yeah, I don't know.
Confusing.
It might be points against the story, but I've already made up my mind. I like this story.
Hey, we structured this in a way that us saying things can change your perception on things.
Yeah, but I still like
You're
again. I still
that's fine.
like the story. So yeah. But that's a good question. And if you, the audience, want to let us know what you think dead simple is in the story, after getting this far, please let us know. So, I think you gave your your final thought there, right? Yeah, your recommendation. Yeah. Okay. So, and yeah, you can leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W because his name is very long.
Check my Twitter. My weekly check of Twitter because I just found it.
Yeah, your weekly check. Yep. And I'm at Review Cultist. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooka-things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content, and because it's kind of related to werewolves, right now, as of this episode getting posted, we have a review that me and Adam from the RPX podcast did on our Patreon for Patreon backers of the first Twilight novel.
My God.
So it is a 2.5 hour review. And I would just like to say here, because this is the first episode that is being recorded at the time of that review going up on our Patreon, thank you, Brownie, for backing our Patreon and donating the audiobook of Twilight for me to do that review. Thanks.
Thank you for putting him through so much pain.
Yeah. We really do I do actually appreciate it. And honestly, like to all our patrons that are helping support our show by backing us on Patreon, thank you immensely, because you're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it would be like screaming into the void. And without your authorship, without sharing these stories online for us, for the world to see and share, we really wouldn't have much of a show, because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
I'm the gamer in yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Au revoir. Sleep well.